You probably remember this. Only a few hundred votes separated the top two candidates in the Democratic primary for Wisconsin governor. It is a marquee race in this formerly reliably blue state, which shocked pundits when Donald Trump won it in 2016 and 2024, without winning a majority of voters. Now, in 2016, Trump won Wisconsin with 47% of the vote, and in 2024 with 49% of the vote. But just 3 months after Trump returned to office in 2025, Wisconsin voters sharply rejected conservative politics in a high-profile state Supreme Court race in which the balance of power of the court was at stake. You may remember this part, even if you don't remember the state Supreme. There he is, Elon Musk in his cheese hat. Famously and ridiculously, the guy parachuted into Wisconsin on behalf of Republicans with offers of $1 million checks to voters. Remember this? Which the Wisconsin Elections Commission, I would note, has determined were likely illegal bribes. Of course they were. Now, it didn't matter, though, because Musk and his money lost. The liberal justice won by 10 points, and the court remains liberal majority to this day. But that race in Wisconsin was the canary in the coal mine for the backlash to Donald Trump that we have seen in election after election across the country since then. The current Democratic governor of Wisconsin, Tony Evers, has a 51% approval rating in the latest Marquette Law School poll. And the candidate Governor Evers endorsed to succeed him, David Crowley, came back from exiting the race to win the nomination overnight. Now, another exciting fact, nearly 800,000 voters who call Wisconsin home cast ballots in the Democratic primary last night, a massive turnout that exceeds the turnout from the last contested gubernatorial primary just a couple of years ago. It's nearly presidential primary levels, just to give you a sense. November is coming, as we all know, 83 days away, and Democratic voters in Wisconsin seem quite ready to do their part. Joining us now is former Wisconsin Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler, the author of the brand new book, This is the Plan, How to End America's Meltdown and Save Democracy. Ben Wickler, as I was watching this, I couldn't go to sleep last night because I was just waiting for the results to come in, as all of us political animals tend to do. What's your takeaway from the results, but also how the Democratic candidates really came together so quickly in this show of unity over the last less than 24 hours?
Thanks so much for having me on, Jen. The country was transfixed to figure out who was going to win the primary. I was most transfixed by the other thing that you just mentioned, the explosive level of turnout in this primary election. Voters were intent on two things. They wanted change from this disastrous dumpster fire that Donald Trump has thrown the whole country into, and they wanted someone who's going to win the general election. And they found a combination of those two things in David Crowley. And what's so extraordinary is the next morning, all the candidates, there were 4 in the race on the ballot, they all came together for a unity brunch, waffles and eggs Benedict, the delicious breakfast food here in a Wisconsin diner. They're now on a unity tour across the state. Everyone is coming together because we all know the stakes in this fight are whether our state will be affordable for the people who are just trying to make a living here, whether it will be a democracy where people get to call the shots, or whether we'll have someone like Tom Tiffany, who was part of the plot to overturn the 2020 election and has voted for everything that has made our lives more expensive while he's been in Congress, whether a guy like him gets to run a state like Wisconsin. I think the verdict is already becoming clear. Voters want David Crowley. They want a Democrat to lead the nation's closest swing state.
Let's talk about the House. There has been a lot of attention on this fascinating, to-the-wire gubernatorial primary. I just talked to David Crowley in the last hour. It's this really interesting background, such a compelling candidate. But there is this seat, Wisconsin 3, which you know well, but I think everybody should be tuning into closely, because Democrat Rebecca Cook is taking on Republican Congressman Jared Van Orden. It's one of the Democrats' top red to blue targets. So this would be a flip in Democrats' efforts to win back the House. What's your read on this race? What should people know about the race? How does even the outcome of last night, higher up on the ticket, impact this race?
So Wisconsin's 3rd congressional district is one of the most critical swing districts in the country. In the last election, Rebecca Cook was the Democratic candidate. She ran several points ahead of Kamala Harris and even of Tammy Baldwin. So she is a spitfire of a candidate. She's a waitress. She has endorsements across the political spectrum, from the left to the center, and she's a fighter for working people. What's going to happen this fall is she'll be up against a guy who is famously explosive, screaming at teenagers in public libraries and in the state's capital, but also voted to cut $1 trillion from healthcare, even as hospitals in his own district, which has a lot of rural areas, rural hospitals were closing down. So this is someone who's directly harmed the lives of the people that he's supposed to represent in the U.S. House. So this is going to be one of the seats, a handful of seats that determine control of the United States House. But the thing that we do in Wisconsin is we build a united permanent campaign. When folks go out to knock on doors for David Crowley, they'll be knocking on doors for Rebecca Cook. They'll be knocking on doors for state legislators who have a chance to flip the state assembly and the state senate for the first time since the 2008 wave and then the red wave that swept Republicans into power in 2010. It's a once-in-a-generation moment to win up and down the ballot in Wisconsin. Rebecca Cook's part of that, David Crowley's part of it, and thousands of volunteers who are getting going right now. They're part of it too.
You were still the Wisconsin Democratic Party chair when Elon Musk came to town back in April. Was it April? Yes, April of 2025. Wore that embarrassing and ridiculous cheese. Well, it just looked embarrassing and ridiculous on him, I should say. The cheese hat. Which
very embarrassing and ridiculous on him.
We love a cheese hat in general.
He's not a real Packer fan. That's right.
Exactly. But I'm wondering, I mean, because that felt, I remember that race so well. Everybody was so focused on that across the country as well. What did that election help you understand about where we are today? What do you think we learned from it about our politics, money, what shouldn't be underestimated? And I ask you this because we're, as you know, 83 days out from the midterms.
So that's actually the opening scene in my book. You can see in my book,
on cue.
I have a fire extinguisher.
There you go.
I have a fire extinguisher on the cover. It's because the country kind of is on fire right now. I think we all feel that. We certainly felt it then. At that moment in 2025, it seemed like Elon Musk could buy whatever political outcome he'd wanted. He poured $250 million into putting Trump in office. He was running the federal government. He was ripping up our foreign aid programs that keep millions of people alive and slashing the call centers at Social Security offices. And he waltzed into Wisconsin to buy the state Supreme Court majority. If he'd been able to do that, it would have felt, I think, to people all across the country that there was no path out of this mess. And instead, people at the grassroots level across Wisconsin organized, knocked on doors, talked to their neighbors. Folks chipped in what they were able to. He outspent us, but we outcommunicated and outorganized him and his tens of millions of dollars. And we were able to throw him out by 10 percentage points in a state that normally comes down to 1 percentage point or less. That showed us that there is still power in the people in this country. It also showed us, when Elon Musk came, he said, this race may not seem like a big deal, but it could affect the entire destiny of humanity. It reminded us that it's these races that no one's paying attention to. State Supreme Courts, state legislative races, down ballot races that affect how elections are administered, that wind up writing the rules for American democracy. And that's at the core of the plan in my book, but also what all of us have to do over these next few months. We have to win the House, we have to win the Senate, but we also have to win the offices that will control whether the future elections in 2028 are free and fair, whether everyone's ballots actually get counted. Those races get much less attention, but they could have a massive impact on the future of the idea of the American experiment. So if we throw our shoulder against the wheel, there's a path out of this mess. We did it in Wisconsin, we can do it nationwide.
All very good lessons to stick with everybody 83 days out from the midterms. Ben Wickler, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me tonight.
Okay, coming up, the craziest thing Donald Trump said this week might also be the most dangerous. We'll talk about that when we come back.